Number 1. Read by WorstNightmare.
This happened to a close friend of mine from work who told me this last night, and it sufficiently creeped me out. So her mother is in the hospital, and she was on her way home from visiting her one night last week. She stopped at the 24-hour Tesco on the way back to get some groceries and petrol, so it was around 10 p.m. when she finally set off for home, the journey to her house taking around 40 minutes. About 5 to 10 minutes into the usually routine trip home, she noticed a car coming up close behind her, flashing the lights as if trying to pull her over. It was just as she was approaching a few miles of road that were fairly deserted, save for a couple of houses, but mainly flanked by fields on either side. It was dark, so she couldn't make out the car or driver, but was fairly certain it wasn't a police car. Besides, she's a careful, teetotal driver with a fully functional vehicle. There should have been no reason for someone to pull her over. Also, she's not so naive that she would just stop on this lonely stretch of road for anyone without a good reason. The other driver was persistent, though, and alternately pulled really close, then backed off and flashed the lights. The car continued to follow closely and flash her. It was only as they entered a more populated area and more cars were driving around that the flashing lights and tailgating stopped. Still, right behind her, though. At this point, she was significantly freaked out, but in the panic of the moment, couldn't think what to do, and still wasn't positive she was being followed. But that was just wishful thinking, she said. The small town where she lives has a huge and very busy day and night as truckers use it to get onto the motorway roundabout with many lanes that must be navigated carefully as you approach. It's very easy to take the wrong exit, especially if you're unfamiliar with the area. She waited until the very last second before pulling out just before a truck, hoping that the Car-Stalker would get stuck behind a stream of traffic. She could easily lose the car after that, she thought, as where she lives has so many roundabouts that if you don't know where you're going, you'd be lost without a GPS system. Her heart sank, though, when she heard the honk of a truck horn behind her, and looking in the rearview mirror, realized Car-Stalker had took a chance, pulled out right after her, and was again now right behind her. With absolutely no doubt now that she was being targeted, her mind raced, and all she could think was that she couldn't drive home, or even to her daughter's or sister's house, as she didn't want to lead this person right to her or her family's door. She grew up in the town, though. She knows all the shortcuts, dead ends, roundabouts like the back of her hand. So she proceeded to lead a merry dance around the area, up a street, down a street, round a roundabout, double back, and so on. This went on for a while, maybe an hour or more, she estimated. Earlier, she had almost skipped getting petrol, as she knew she'd have just enough to get home. At this moment, she was thanking her lucky stars that she had got it, or she'd be breaking down right about now. The car was still following, but at a further distance this time. She pulled suddenly, without indicating, onto a long main road where there are about 10 or 12 identical side streets running parallel to each other all along the road. These lead up to cul-de-sacs that pretty much all look the same. Seeing no sign of a car behind, she swung into a random street, drove up a little behind another car, then killed the engine. Ducking down, after 5 to 10 minutes of what she described felt like holding her breath, she had another check of her surroundings, and it appeared she had lost the stalker. Full of relief, she turned around, pulled out of the side street, and there he was. She could make out the outline of a man in the driver's seat, so she knew for sure now he was male, which somehow made it so much worse. He had pulled up on the opposite side of the main road and was just waiting for her, like he knew where she'd gone and was just taunting her. Frozen for a second, she was unable to gather any more details before she got it together and sped off in the opposite direction. It took about another 30 minutes of cat and mouse, plus around 20 minutes waiting it out, before she finally lost him. She'd managed to quickly pull into an empty driveway after taking a few erratic turns. She was on the right side of a 4x4, which obscured her car, and she switched off all the lights before he'd had the chance to follow her. She waited even longer this time, though. She was sure he'd been waiting, but he must have either got bored or lost her. She was looking over her shoulder the whole way home, though, and she still does now. In hindsight, she realized the best thing to do would have been to go to the nearest police station, or at least call them. But hindsight is a wonderful thing. The next day, she was telling her daughter, who was furious with her for not calling the police or telling her sooner. She did then make a report at the local police station and was disturbed at what she discovered. First of all, her report was not the only one. 2 other women had reported almost identical experiences. One of them had called the police while being followed and asked if there were any unmarked police vehicles in the area that may be signaling for her to pull over. They indicated that there were not any such vehicles and advised the woman to pull into a nearby well-lit and staffed service station where they met her to take her report. He soon took off when he saw where she was headed. The other woman had managed to lose him also by driving towards the police station. This one was in broad daylight. There may have been more women who just haven't reported it. Even more worrisome, the police suspect the stalker is an already convicted rapist who has recently been released from prison. The M.O. in his previous crimes matches this. He would pose as a concerned fellow driver, pull a woman over with some BS about a light being out on her car or whatever, then pull her into the back of the car and rape her. They have been unable to charge him with anything so far, as, fortunately, he has not managed to succeed in his tactics this time. It is worrying to think, though, that this guy might have to actually rape someone before he can be arrested. And he's in my local area. Shivers. So, weird and creepy Car-Stalker guy, let's not meet.
Number 2. Read by Mr. Sinister.
So last Saturday evening, myself and my girlfriend had gone out to a friend's to drink a bit and play games. Since I'm driving later on, I only have a couple of beers pretty early in. Anyways, we leave around 3 a.m, and on the way home, my girlfriend is craving some Jack-in-the-Box, since it's about the only food place that's open around that time. To clarify for people on the eastern side of the US, it's a fast food chain. Well, there's a couple of cars ahead of us, and the one immediately ahead has a few people, so it's a pretty large order, and taking a while. Pretty usual on a Saturday night, even that late. I guess I sort of space out as I'm talking to my girlfriend while we wait, because I hadn't noticed that I never put my window back up after ordering for her. I don't know what it was that made me glance in my side rear view, maybe just habit, but I see a person slowly walking up the drive-thru in a red sweater with their hood pulled all the way tight over their face. Now, on a really cold January night, something like that wouldn't strike me as too weird. However, it was a surprisingly mild temperature evening that night, which may be why I didn't notice my window was down in the first place. But as soon as I see this person, my brain just fires off all kinds of red flags. My girlfriend notices me tensing up a lot as I roll my window, make sure all the doors are locked and my eyes are glued to the rear view, not saying a word. I let her know that there's a person right there who is really shady looking. I've been a victim of a couple of muggings in the past, so she understands why I'm so on edge. This person, though, just keeps very slowly moving closer to the car, even after he must know I can see him. I start tripping out because the car up ahead still hasn't received their order, and this person is still moving up toward my car. And this is one of those narrow drive-thrus, so my only other escape route would be just towards him if he approached the car. So I quickly shift my car from neutral to reverse, and the guy stops as soon as those reverse lights come on, and then moves forward, still the same pace. This time I start revving with my e-brake engaged. He moves forward again. I rev up again, and I had a second to see him quicken his pace forward a little drastically before I reacted by disengaging the brake and reversing and pulling a really quick stopping short, so I only move like 6 inches back. He stops again. By this time the car in front is leaving, and I move up, pay, get my food, and inform the employee he's there. He's standing in the middle a few large paces back from my car, and I leave. I'm glad that whatever he was planning, he was hesitant about, as it's likely in the area I live in that he at least had a knife. I didn't hear any robbery reports either, so I don't think he bothered the employees, or they didn't go near the window while he was there. To the man in the drive-thru, let's not meet.
Number 3. Read by WorstNightmare.
I literally just made this account to post here because I love the stories in this sub, and it made me remember one I experienced myself. Flashback to me when I was 17, just got back from work. I made it to the station near work on a hot summer day at the end of my shift. It was as usual as any. I took the train to the bus to another one. When I got to the station to take my final bus towards home, smoke began to submerge from the engine. Typical. My guardian couldn't pick me up at the station, so I had to walk the 7-mile route to home myself. As I crossed the street walking away from a near gas station, oh God, I should have just stayed there. Oh well. I noticed an elderly man walking behind me at a distance of around 50 meters. Now note that I usually overreact and panic a lot, but I had a tough day and I didn't think much of it. After 2 miles or so, the man was still walking behind me at the same distance and space, and now tiny alarm bells started softly ringing. So I used my main method to debunk my fears. Act like I'm in a phone call with someone and sit near a tree or wherever I can sit. Unfortunately, the man just slowed down until I started walking again. Now I started to get more worried. I decided to quicken my pace and take a different route through a near town. Once again, the man was behind me. I figured that if I take a small alleyway, it would escape this pursuit. I was wrong. I took the alleyway and came down to a near small soccer field where some kids were playing soccer. I acted like I was very interested and sat down to watch their game. Finally, the man walked past me and slithered off into an unknown alleyway. Safe to say, I was relieved, but it doesn't end there. I waited 2 minutes before moving on and walked to a different alley, and guess who just came walking down another side road back to me? Yeah, damn right. Now I started to worry a lot. As a kid who is a bit overweight and has almost zero stamina, I knew I couldn't run. I walked normal towards another alley, and thank God I ran into a mother hanging up her laundry in her yard. I sat down near a trunk and tried to act like I was busy on my phone. Of course, at any given moment, right now was the best time for my phone to be completely drained of battery. I tried to leave when I just saw him walking behind me at a small pace, making eye contact. It was hard for me not to look him in the eyes, and I made sure I acted like I didn't notice him. Thank God, after about what seemed like an eternity, he left, but I knew it wouldn't be for long. He came back. I just knew it. I went to make my way out of the alley. When I was almost out the street, I felt it. I felt it. I know in my gut. He was lurking at me with those eyes. I just knew it. So I listened to my instincts and began to run as hard as I could, ignoring oncoming traffic and whatsoever. I ran into a big building office thing, and I almost jumped inside, breathing heavily. I told them what had happened, and I asked if I could maybe phone my group, that they just had to pick me up. It was urgent. But of course, they came with the answer I was already afraid of. No, sorry, we're making dinner, so we're very busy and can't pick you up. Are you sure you didn't just imagine the whole thing? Well, they helped me out a lot. I guess I was on my own. The office was about to close, and I had to leave. There I was again, alone, out on the streets. Just when I lost all hope and knew I would become one of those kids on TV who were missing only to never be found again, I spotted my friend in a car. He waved, and when I came storming down to his car, he knew something was off. I stepped into his car, explained everything, and we went looking for the man. Knowing my friend is skillful kickboxer, I knew what went down if we found him. Lucky for the creep, we didn't find him, and my friend proceeded to safely drop me off at home. Thank God. So, creepy old dude who was following me around, eyeing me, creeping on me, and ruining my day. Let's not meet. Ever again.
Number 4. Last month, I got a job in a mini-mart to pay for college since my savings weren't quite enough. I was only able to take night shifts since I spend most of the day at school and at home studying. When you're on the night shift, you're all alone. But it's not too hard, since barely anyone comes in during the evenings. There's an office where employees can hang out when there's nothing to do. There, you can monitor the security cameras and go over what needs to be done. The security cameras even have built-in motion detectors that will alert you if a movement is detected. I spend most of my time there with snacks, playing on my phone, while I wait for customers to come in. The other employees describe it as getting paid for being alone in a store, with the occasional break to help the handful of customers that come in during the night. On my first shift, I immediately noticed something out of the ordinary was going on. The motion detectors would go off when the store was empty and the cameras didn't show anything. Then I began hearing faint voices and footsteps from within the store. The voices would be indistinct but spoken in the same tone of voice that people usually speak in when they're chatting with someone they haven't met in a long time. Even customers would sometimes hear this and think it was me saying something when I really hadn't. I usually go to check but find nothing. The store is empty. Later, when I was refilling the soda cooler, I started seeing people walk past me in the reflection of the glass door, but no one was there. This happened several times, and I never saw anyone near me. The coolers would also sometimes open and slam quietly shut at random times. Do you know that feeling you get when you're in a crowded room? That minor claustrophobic sense, and that feeling like people are looking at you? That's how I always feel when I'm closing up the store and cleaning up. It could be paranoia, and I'm just imagining it, but my past experiences lead me to believe it is not. I've never had the nerve to mention this to my boss, out of fear of getting labeled crazy and possibly getting fired for being unfit. But I'm dead certain there is something going on there. I don't intend to quit anytime soon, since I don't feel like I'm in any danger, and I need the money, but this scares me a lot. Every night seems to have more going on than the last, and I've began writing down in my phone what I witness. I'm not aware that anyone has ever died in this store, but the store has been open since the 1920s, and anything could have happened. I've wanted to research it, but it's changed names and owners several times, which makes it hard to do so. Number 5. Read by MrCreepyMaster.
Hey guys, this is my first time posting here, so here it goes. This event happened to me this spring 2015. So I'm a young adult, male, living in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. I joined a fairly popular BDSM website mid-January and was instantly drawn into the community. For those of you who don't know, BDSM is a variety of erotic practices involving bondage, dominance, submission, and masochism. Think 50 Shades of Grey if that helps. The community welcomes all kinks and fetishes alike, and everyone I've ever met from that site have been very welcoming and friendly, except for one. It all started with me coming across her profile. She was a gorgeous woman, very fit, with long legs and firm breasts. She was an older woman, but I was into that. I started browsing her collection of photos, mostly fairly vanilla images of her sitting at a dining room table, drinking a glass of wine and smiling at the camera. Real classy, which just urged me forward. I went ahead and messaged her. I wrote the usual greetings and offered to chat and get to know each other. She replied almost instantly. She greeted me as Sir, given the role I take. We continued to message back and forth for a week or two. She explained to me that she wanted me to be her master since her last master died in a car accident. This was odd to me, but unfortunate accidents can happen to anyone, right? She continued giving me details of what she wanted me to do to her, and I very much obliged. The next couple of days, we kept trying to meet up for a coffee, but unfortunately she had to cancel last minute each time. Eventually, I began getting very eager as all the kinky discussions have gotten me worked up. So late one night, she messages me inviting me over to her place. She explained to me that she doesn't work in the morning, so we can be up all night having our fun. Well, being so worked up and lacking the necessary blood flowing to my brain to make an educated decision, I agreed and asked her for her address. She messaged me an address along with a phone number she said was her home line, and I got ready to head out. So I got into my car and plugged the address into my GPS. This is where I noticed she lived in Hamilton, which is about 45 minutes away from Toronto. It's currently 1 a.m., but this doesn't bother me as I drove to Hamilton quite often, and considering I'd be spending the night, I could just leave in the morning. 45 minutes later, I found myself passing Hamilton. Okay, so it's a little further than that. No big deal. But then I reached a stretch of highway void of streetlights. This is where I start to get concerned as I only had my own headlights lighting my way. Suddenly, my GPS chimed in with the female voice indicating my exit. It was coming up on the right and I feared driving into darkness of the mild comfort of the highway. The exit took me into a long dark stretch of country road. My red lights started going off as I passed silhouettes of farmhouses and forestry, a good distance between each of them. My GPS chimed again, indicating that my destination was coming up on my left, but as I approached the location, it was not even close to what I expected. It was a small church house with one yellow streetlight illuminating the dirt lot in front of it. I pulled into the lot and took a closer look with my vehicle's headlights pointing at the building. The windows and door were boarded up, and definitely not recently as the wood seemed weathered and worn. My blood began to run cold as I made sure my doors were locked and my windows rolled up. The full tank of gas gave me some kind of comfort in the situation. I figured she possibly made an error in typing out her address and called the number she gave me. All I got was, the number you're trying to reach is no longer in service. Okay, at this point, I'm ready to turn and leave until I notice my phone alerting me that I have an email. It was a message from her. Hey, I see you there. It's not the church. My place is the small house behind the church. All I could do is replay all the horror movies I've seen throughout my life, and I just couldn't believe I could possibly be living one out in real life. However, a small jolt of curiosity persuaded me forward, even if just to look at this house. There was a small path beside the church and I slowly pulled up into it. As I crept forward in my car, a small little farmhouse poked itself out of the trees at the top of the hill. At this point, I was certain I'm not going in there. I'd made the decision in my head that my own survival took precedence over my need for sex. I was about to reverse out of there until I saw the upstairs balcony door open. A hooded figure stepped out. I couldn't see their face, but I could tell by the posture and shape that it was a man. Despite the darkness of his facial features, I could feel he was looking directly at me. He stood there for about 30 seconds before he motioned his head in a way I recognized as the universal signal for "look behind you." Just then, I felt the metal handle on the outside of my driver door being tugged at. I quickly turned my head in that direction to see the woman from the profile photos hunched over and pressing her face up against the window. My heart leapt out of my chest as I stared at her horrifying smile. The best way I can describe her expression would be any creepy cartoon image of the Joker you've ever seen. It was undoubtedly her behind that insane grin, only much older. She whispered through the glass, "Open the door, baby." I was frozen in my seat, unsure how to respond or what to do next, so I just sat there continuing to stare at her like an idiot. Her face then quickly fell into an angry, malicious expression as she continued to violently jiggle at the door handle. She then yelled at the top of her lungs, "Open the door now!" This knocked me into panic mode and I pressed my foot to the gas. My car, set to reverse, began to pull out of the pathway backwards. The woman tried holding onto the door handle, only to let go shortly after being dragged off her feet. I flew down the dark road back towards the highway, almost tripled the speed limit just in case they had a car themselves and decided to chase me. I called a friend of mine who I also met on the same website. She lived in Hamilton and insisted I come stay the night at her place. When I got there, she poured me a cold glass of Coke Zero as I explained to her what happened. She told me she read an article in the local paper over a week ago regarding an older couple luring a man into their farm. I stopped her right there as I didn't want to be freaked out even more than I currently was. So crazy, potential murderous woman, let's never meet.